What's up YouTube, Josh of All Trades here, and I just finished up Westworld, the Season 1 finale, Episode 10, the Bicameral Mind. Okay, I think that was a good time. We all got what we came here for. It was a fun time to watch. We got to look at some cool pictures. I'm going to do my review by the biggest three characters and storylines I got here, and I'm getting into it. We got to start with the Man in Black / William. I think this is probably a lot of fun to write. I think it was definitely, from the production and writer's viewpoint, their brainchild in that area of this season that they really love to hang on to. And while this was poised to be a really good twist in the show, it was way too predictable. I mean, like I said in my reviews before, probably as soon as episode 3, I think I started seeing theories online saying that William was the Man in Black, and that kind of spoiled it for me. And even if you didn't buy into it at that particular time, I think by episode 7 or 8, we probably had the information we needed to make the decision that, hey, William is eventually going to become this guy. And so while the Man in Black / William was definitely a worthwhile storyline, I enjoyed watching it. I think it was predictable on too many levels and could have been written just a little bit better, so that earlier in the season we had that ambiguity to wonder if it was really going to be the same person. Next, we gotta talk about the Maeve story. Now, y'all know I love Thandie Newton. I could watch a show with just clones of her all day, every day, but the Maeve story got pretty weak towards the end here. I personally found it unbelievable that while Maeve and company is going around like shooting up the park and escaping, that the board party with Dr. Ford was still going on uninterrupted, and trains were coming and going freely. Apparently the other parks are still operating, and it took forever for QA to get there. Even though my belief in the Maeve story has been suspended for quite some time, I wanted it to go out just a little bit stronger than we've been having. While I was watching this episode, my personal thoughts that I think would have been interesting to see is I thought that Dr. Ford was going to stage this whole event where everyone gets murdered by hosts, and simultaneously he guides the situation with Maeve so that Felix, the lab tech, gets caught trying to sneak her out, and then it looks like Felix set up this whole anarchy with all the robots. And it would have been interesting to see how the show would progress after it was framed like that. It leaves Dr. Ford in control of the park, and that's how I really wanted this to end. Despite that, though, we still got a pretty interesting display of humanity there at the end, where even though Maeve is able to make her own choices, she chooses to go back and look for her daughter inside the park instead of leaving outside of Westworld. And of course, we got that plug for the other area that's not medieval world, but maybe it's samurai world, or some sort of other area of the park that's going to be explored in season 2. And then, of course, we had the meatiest part of this episode, the Dolores storyline, from which the episode also gets its namesake, involving bicameralism. It was a theory by psychologist Julian Jaynes that says that cognition happens in 2 parts, where one part of the mind is speaking and one part is listening, and that's exactly what we have at the end here. We finally get that reveal that the referees were not something that was put in by Dr. Ford, but it was something left behind by Arnold, and it wasn't actually for him to be able to speak to the host, but it was a way for them to slowly realize that they had a voice inside themselves that they could hear and they could understand their own actions. And in this episode, Maeve and Dolores actually kind of diverge on this, that Maeve's actions are framed as being something scripted that were wrote in as part of this bigger story, but Dolores' actions were just free-flowing in her own will. And that's actually where things get a little sticky for me. I know Dr. Ford said that Arnold actually committed suicide, that he pulled the trigger himself through Dolores. And with this criticism, we see the parallel that Dr. Ford was giving this speech about the hosts having their own thoughts and their own cognitive processes, and at that exact moment, Dolores makes the decision herself to kill him. That moment was just a little too perfect for me, but that being said, I still had a lot of fun watching this episode, and it makes the point that now the park's creator is dead, the management is dead, the employees are dead, the hosts are gonna be dead, the guests are gonna be dead, and all we're gonna have is this society or this civilization of these robots and machines that are capable of thought and self-awareness and consciousness and independent action. And season 2 is poised to explore what type of action these hosts are going to take in their own world that's not meant purely for machines or for humans, but it's their own place. And while I had my hang-ups about season 1, I definitely will be watching season 2. I mean, I had a lot of fun with this series. It was interesting to watch and finally get these backstories built up, and we had our hypothesis, and it all came together relatively nicely. Hey y'all, but don't get twisted though. The most fun I had was doing these review videos and getting some feedback from y'all. I loved interacting with everyone in the comments. I heard a lot of great feedback from some of the regulars after the episodes, and that was the most fun I had. So thank you. I have heartfelt appreciation for everyone that watches my videos. Thank you so much for doing that. And while I wasn't exactly just blown out of the water by Westworld Season 1, I think maybe I learned something myself. Hello everybody, this is the Sheriff of all trades here, and I'm here to tell you that I watched every episode of Westworld Season 1, and through all the fluff, and through all the violence, and through all the girl-on-girl android action, I came to learn something true. As much of a highbrow, pseudo-intellectual show as Westworld presented itself to be, I learned that there actually is nothing true for us to learn. I'm not going to, as Felix did, question my own consciousness or my own reality. I have not developed empathy for machines, and when I go to Six Flags, I am certainly not going to treat those entertainers dressed in Looney Tunes costumes like human beings. In our quest to find some sort of philosophical truth with this series, we were so fixated on the facade that we completely missed the fact that Westworld is nothing but cheap thrills. Hey, it was fun though, so I'll see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.